Today we will be solving a question which was recently asked in Amazon online assessment round. So the question is over here. You can pause the screen and try to solve this on your own first. I hope you have tried the question. So let me explain the question. So the question says that you have one integer array which has all the elements as positive. Now you also have one operation. So that operation says that take any prefix like this and decrement all the elements by 1. So 11 would become 10, 7 would become 6, 2 would become 1, 2 would become 1, and 4 would become 3. So this is the operation that we can perform. And the goal of this problem is to maximize the number of zeros after all possible operations. Also, one thing that we should keep in mind is no element should become negative while performing the operation. So right now, if you see when we perform the operation, the elements are still positive. But let's assume that if we perform this operation one more time on, let's say, this particular prefix, then all the elements would become something like 9, 5, 0, 0, 3, sorry, 2, and this would become 5. Now let's assume we once more perform the prefix operation on this particular subarray. Then 9 would become 8, 5 would become 4, and 0 would become -1. And this is what we don't want because element should never become negative. I hope you understood the question. Now let's check out the solution. So let me ask you one question. Can we convert this element to 0? The answer is no. Let's see why. In order to convert that element to 0, I have to perform the operation 4 times, right? So all the numbers in this prefix would be reduced by 4. And that's the reason why we can convert this element to 0. But while doing so, this element would become negative, right? So it would become -2. And since it is becoming -2, we can conclude that this element cannot be converted to 0. Let's try to convert another element to 0. So for example, let's say I want to convert this 5 to 0. So in order to convert that element to 0, I have to perform the operation on this prefix 5 times. So all the elements in this prefix would be reduced by 5. And let's check that out. So 5 would become 0, this 6 would become 1, this 4 would become -1, and this is what we don't want. Hence, we can conclude that 5 cannot be converted to 0. Let's try to convert this 2 to 0. So in order to convert this 2 to 0, take this prefix and perform the operation 2 times. So all the numbers in this prefix would be decremented by 2. So we'll get something like this. So we are successful in converting that 2 to 0. Hence, we can conclude that this 2 can be converted to 0. I hope you have observed one key point over here. If you haven't, let me show this via one graph. So let's check out this graph. Can I convert this 4 to 0? No, right? We already saw. Why? Because in order to convert this 4 to 0, I have to perform the operation 4 times, right? So that operation will also affect this number and this would go into negative, right? And hence we cannot convert this 4 to 0. Can I convert this 6 to 0? In order to convert 6 to 0, -6 is needed, and that's the reason why 6 cannot be converted to 0 because it would affect this 2 as well. So all those number which has a smaller number on the left side cannot be converted to 0. Like for example, can I convert this 7 to 0? Yes. Because if I convert this 7 to 0, minus 7 is needed. And that minus 7 will bring this 11 to 4, which is still positive, right? So what we can conclude is any element which does not have a smaller element on the left side can be converted to 0. For example, can I convert this 1 to 0? Yes, because in order to convert this 1 to 0, I need minus 1, and this minus 1 would not bring any number to negative, right? For example, if I perform minus 1 on this, it will still be 1. It will not go into negative. Hence, the final answer is all those elements which does not have a smaller element on the left side can be converted to 0. So I hope you understood the question and the solution. Let's check out the code. So this is the code. Here I have taken the input array that we were working on, and I have also defined one function which is max number of zeros, which takes the array as the input. In this function, I have defined a couple of variables. First is count, which tracks the number of elements that can be converted to 0. Second is the minimum element found till now. Okay. So I'll traverse from left to right and I'll check if for any element there exists a like for example, this element is a valid element if there does not exist a smaller element on the left side, right? So if the left mean is greater than equals to the current element, then I can say that it is a valid element. Hence, I'll increment the counter. And I am minimizing or updating the minimum element found till now. Okay. And finally, we are returning the count. So let's run this code. So the answer is 5, as you can see. Which are the 5 elements that can be converted to 0? 11 can be converted, 7, 2, 2, and this 1. So there are total 5 elements that can be converted to 0. So I hope you understood the code as well. If you haven't, comment down. I'll try to answer that. Thanks.